is the Fight Numbers Podcast with your host, John Kelly.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome back. John Kelly here to talk UFC Florida, Draftkings, and betting breakdown. I'll be honest, UFC Jacksonville did not go great. We were right about some things. We were wrong about a lot of things. And we kind of knew it was going to be a dicey card like that. What up, Bob? Shout out to you in the chat. I am super excited to talk Saturday. Put UFC Jacksonville behind us and just keep pushing along here. I think the card Saturday, I'm actually more excited. It's obviously not a better card than UFC 249, but I'm actually more excited for this card because I think from a DraftKings and betting perspective, there's a lot of stuff that we can exploit. So I got a lot to talk about. For those that are joining us for the first time, basically I'm going to break down every fight matchup for the Saturday UFC Florida card. I'm going to talk DraftKings specifically and where I see value in the betting markets. What up, Corfaga? I never know how to pronounce your name, but what up, man? Shout out to you in the chat. Need a bounce back? Absolutely. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to bounce back big for this Saturday card. I'm going to get right into it. Feel free to interrupt me in the chat at any time. Just try to keep it on the fight that we're talking about or the fighters that we're talking about. If not a big deal. But either way, we're going to talk fights here. And then at the end, I'll go over my favorite bets for the card as well and answer any questions then, talk tournament strategy, whatever. And then we'll get right into it. So first fight up on the card is going to be one of the fights that I'm really excited about. And I put up a teaser tweet earlier in the week, and basically the line isn't as good as I thought it was going to be. So basically, for those that don't know, back when I used to do a free blog on Roto Grinders, I called Amanda Hebos by submission against Emily Whitmire. It was plus 750. Nobody was backing her. She was relatively unknown. So I thought we were going to get a similar line to that. It's not even close to 750, but it is still a good spot. It was just at the time the prop wasn't released for it yet, and I thought it would be a little bit higher. But since then, money has come in on the underdog here, and now it's almost a pick'em fight, and the submission prop isn't even that good, but we'll get to it. Basically, Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira versus Don'Tale Mayes. Don'Tale Mayes comes in as the slight favorite here, as you can see. And like I said, money's moved. So it was minus 120 yesterday, and now Mayes is at minus 115. Opened at minus 130. So some money coming in on Nascimento, and that's the guy who I was referring to. So basically, I'm really excited about this matchup. I think Nascimento should not only be the favorite, but be bigger than a minus 120 favorite. So Mayes is coming off the submission loss in his UFC debut against Cyril Gane last October, and Cyril Gane's a beast physically. I mean, he literally is a monster, and he's a good grappler as well. So it's not a huge knock against Mayes, but it's still a good spot for Nascimento. Mayes basically is just like a knockout or bust guy. He's 6'6". He does have power. Pretty much all of his wins come by knockout. But he's not a good grappler, and he doesn't defend takedowns very well, especially once he starts to gas out in the later rounds, which he tends to do. And that's where I could definitely see a very clear path to victory for Nascimento. Nascimento's coming off the Dana White Contender Series last July. He won by submission. He's currently undefeated, and 5 of his 7 professional wins have come by submission. So I definitely think that's going to be his game plan here. He's a good grappler. He has decent power on the feet as well, and he likes to come forward. So I think they're probably going to stand and trade for a little bit as long as he doesn't get knocked out instantly by Mayes. Then I think we definitely see him go to the wrestling and go to the grappling. And Mayes has a strong chin, so that's another reason why I think Nascimento's definitely going to implement that wrestling and grappling game plan. So the fight as a whole is minus 300 not to go to decision. So it's obviously a really strong fight that we want to have exposure to. And it's actually, minus 290 now. It was 300 yesterday. But both guys have a pretty solid inside distance line. Mays plus 140. That hasn't moved at all. Nascimento plus 168. That hasn't moved either. But the submission prop, which was released earlier today, which is the bet that I was referring to the other day on Twitter, is where'd it go? Nascimento. Yeah, plus 177. So it opened at 2-1 and immediately dropped to plus 177. I haven't hit it yet, but I plan on hitting it after this show once I had a really busy day today. But yeah, so that should be out on most books. I definitely like that bet quite a bit because, like I said, I think that's a very clear path to victory here. He withstands the early storm from Mays. He gets him down and just implements his game plan, which is a much, much better grappler than Dontel Mays. So I like the dog here. Starting off with an underdog, Rodrigo Nascimento is the pick, and he's a pretty strong play on DraftKings as well. All right, next fight up on the card is going to be Darren Elkins versus Nate Landwehr. And Darren Elkins comes in as a slight favorite here. Minus 130. That's actually moved a little bit too. He opened up plus 105. Now minus 130 favorite. The comeback on Landwehr is plus 110. This fight as a whole, not to go decision, is plus 120. So it wouldn't be the most shocking thing. Inside distance line for both fighters. Landwehr is plus 257. And Darren Elkins, I think, is worse. Plus 400 for Darren Elkins. But, I have a really strong stance against Darren Elkins. I've been very vocal in the past about how I just will never be backing Darren Elkins in any matchup, and I stand by that because, he's just a punching bag. The fact that we're seeing him as a slight favorite here just speaks to how little faith people have in Nate Landwehr, and I think I know why. Landwehr came to UFC Raleigh. I was actually at that card. He was making his UFC debut. He fought Gilbert Burns' brother, Herbert Burns, who is a black belt. Just like Gilbert, he's a submission specialist, not a knockout guy. And Landwehr comes off and tries to put a pace on him immediately, and Herbert Burns catches him cleanly with a knee and just knocks him out. It was pretty bad. So I've seen a lot of hate on Landwehr just because he got knocked out by this dude that's not a knockout guy. But I mean, if you hit somebody clean with a knee, it doesn't matter if you're not a knockout guy. You can knock him out. So I'm not going to fault him too much, other than it was his UFC debut. He wanted to put on a show. He got a little too excited and he got caught. But when it comes to this matchup, I think it's going to be pretty interesting just because, Landwehr is definitely a striker, and Darren Elkins, he's an okay striker offensively. Defensively, he's a punching bag, and he has a little bit of wrestling and grappling. He definitely has the advantage there. But when has Darren Elkins not wanted to engage in a brawl? And that's the type of fighter that Landwehr is he's going to want a trade with Darren Elkins. And Darren Elkins is definitely not going to back down from that. So it's I get it why people are backing Elkins, because if he fought the right way, he should win a decision fairly easily. But I just have zero confidence that he's going to fight the right way. I think they're just going to stand and trade. And Darren Elkins is too slow. He's taken so much damage. I know his nickname is the Damage, but he's taken so much over the years that he's lost it, man. And you see it in all of his fights, especially more recently. So the pick is Landwehr for me. I just think he's going to be a lot faster. And, I'm basically, like I said, I'm taking anybody in a striking matchup against Darren Elkins in 2020. So that's going to be the pick. Landwehr by decision, possibly even by knockout. But I definitely lean more decision because Elkins is so tough to put away. Even though he takes so much damage, he does have a good chin. So Landwehr by decision is the official pick. You're getting a little bit of plus money on that one. You might even be able to wait until Saturday if it keeps moving in favor of Elkins and get a little bit more bang for your buck. So back-to-back two underdogs to start the card here. Definitely see some value in both of those. Bros1999 saying, what's up in the chat? Shout out to you. The prop for Bob Gomes asked, "What's the prop?" I'm assuming he means Landwehr by knockout. That I don't love because, like I said, Darren Elkins does have a nice chin, but Landwehr by knockout inside distance line 257. I don't see knockout. Okay, there it is. Yeah, plus 300. Yeah, Landwehr plus 300. There is a little bit of money coming in. It's still early, but you know, I wouldn't be shocked if it did move a little bit in his favor, just because Elkins he's a punching bag, and that's all I have to say. So, yeah, next fight up on the card is going to be CORTNEY Casey versus Mara Romero Barella, and Barella basically neither of these fighters are gonna inspire a ton of confidence in you guys. Casey comes in as a minus 150 favorite. The comeback on Barella is plus 130. Basically, this fight just couldn't be more of a fade for me. And usually those type of fights, I just don't like to spend a lot of time on because there's really no point. You know, I'm not going to target it on Draftkings. You guys aren't, and there's really not a strong bet to make either. Casey's coming in with just one win over her last 4 fights, and that was a split decision against Angela Hill that I don't even know if she really won. And Barella, it's basically the same thing. She has one win over her last 4 fights, and she's not very good as well either. She even was a big favorite, and I think her 2 fights ago and lost. So, I mean, it's just 2 low-level women's MMA fighters, and I don't trust either of them, to be honest, and I don't think they'll score very well on DraftKings either. I do lean Casey just due to her experience. She's fought the much better competition, and I don't think that I can back her even as a small favorite just because of her history, but I do think she should win this fight, and that's basically all I have to say. In terms of DraftKings, she does have a high floor because she stays pretty active, lands close to 5 significant strikes per minute, but I'd be surprised to see her get a finish, which makes her mostly a fade for me. And Barella, I have just absolutely no interest in because even if she does win, she never scores well anyway. So, like I said, it's mostly a pass for me, but Casey by decision is the official pick. We'll just pull up DraftKings real quick. See, she's priced at 8.8K. Really, the fight against Angela Hill, she scored 94 points, but aside from that, you know, you really have to go back quite a ways to see her score high. And in this matchup, I just don't really see it being super high pace, so mostly a fade for me. All right, next fight up on the card is going to be Mike Davis versus Giga Chikadze. Mike Davis, for those that don't remember, is the one that nearly put Thomas Gifford in a coma during his last fight out. He comes in as a minus 190 favorite. The comeback on Chikadze is plus 165. And money is surprisingly coming in on Chikadze here, just a little bit. And we were on Chikadze his last time out against Jamal Emmers, I think it was. Let me look. Yeah. Yeah, it was against Jamal Emmers back at UFC 248. So we were on him there as a dog, just because he has such a strong kickboxing pedigree, but he's super one-dimensional, right? Like, that's basically all he has. He'll throw some kicks at range. He's a decent boxer. He's a good kickboxer. But when you talk about the matchup with Mike Davis has hands. And if you couldn't figure that out, not just in the Thomas Gifford fight where he just was completely the much more talented fighter, but go back and watch the Sadiq Youssef fight on Contender Series, one of the best fights ever on the Contender Series, and that you'll watch him stand and trade with Sadiq Youssef, who's an excellent boxer as well, and he's right up there with him. So he's a guy that I'm definitely high on as a prospect, and I just think against Chikadze, well, Chikadze's a good kickboxer. Chikadze also has very bad cardio. We even saw it in the Jamal Emmers fight. He almost gave it away in the 3rd round because he was just so gassed. And if he does that against Mike Davis, Davis is just going to continue to piece him up. Davis is faster, he's more powerful, and much better cardio. He can go all day. So I just think he has an advantage from the jump, But I think the further along this fight goes, the more drastic that advantage becomes. So I like Mike Davis quite a bit. Davis by decision is the official pick in this one, but I also wouldn't be surprised if he knocked him out, like I said, in the later rounds once Chikadze does gas. He could definitely be vulnerable to a knockout in the later rounds. And then in terms of DraftKings, I think Davis, he's the most expensive fighter at 9.2K. So I don't love the price, and I think he's going to be semi-popular because of what he did to Thomas Gifford. You see the 148 DraftKings points. That's absolutely absurd. But remember, that fight should have been stopped. It could have been stopped 7 different times in that fight. If you get a chance, go back and watch it. But it's just an absolute beating, similar to the one Anthony Smith took, where his corner just should have thrown in the towel. That's exactly what happened with Thomas Gifford, maybe even more drastic. So I don't see him scoring quite that well, but he does put on a high pace. So he could pay off the price tag even without a finish. It's just I think he's going to be semi-popular because people are going to be chasing that big score. And so he's in the mix for me, just not my favorite play. But Davis by decision is the official pick in that one. All right, next fight up on the card is Anthony Hernandez versus Kevin Holland. This fight is basically a pick'em. And this one has actually taken some action today because earlier today, this afternoon, Kevin Holland was the minus 115 favorite and Hernandez was minus 105. And now they've flip-flopped a little bit. What up, Travi? Thanks for joining us in the chat. And basically, so they flipped. So now Hernandez is the minus 115 favorite. And, see. Well, actually, this isn't accurate because when I looked earlier... Okay, here we go. Yeah. 10:52. Yeah, so like I said, it's basically a pick'em fight. This fight not to go decision is plus 115, so wouldn't be the craziest thing if we saw a finish here. Kevin Holland is coming off the submission loss against Brendan Allen, my boy Brendan Allen, last October, but prior to that, he was on a 3-fight win streak, and his only other loss in the UFC came against Thiago Santos. And Anthony Hernandez, on the other hand, is coming off the second round submission victory over Jun Young Park last August. And honestly, he didn't look super great in that one. He seemed like he got tired, and he was kind of lucky to get that submission because I don't know if he was ahead on the scorecards. But this is a really difficult matchup for him because Kevin Holland is really just the better version of Anthony Hernandez, in my opinion. Holland is a solid wrestler as well, and Hernandez is too, but that's basically all Hernandez is. And Holland's just as good, if not better. He lands over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so he has the grappling advantage. And while it plays out on the feet, Holland is the much more active guy. He lands almost double significant strikes that Anthony Hernandez does. He'll have a 6-inch reach advantage, which I think is going to play a pretty big role here. He basically has all the advantages in this matchup, and he's the more experienced fighter. So I plan on betting him, and I plan on playing him on DraftKings pretty heavily because this is such a close fight. You know they're going to be priced in the mid-range, so Holland is 8,200 and Hernandez is 8K. So at 8,200, he doesn't really have to do a ton, and he generally doesn't score super well, but I think we could see a little bit of wrestling and grappling in this one, more so than his last couple fights. So I do have a little bit of interest in a decent amount of interest in Kevin Holland, and I definitely like the bet on Holland as well. All right, next fight up on the card is going to be Matt Brown versus Miguel Beza. This is the feature prelim fight. Miguel Carmel Thunder Beza comes in as the minus 210 favorite. The comeback on Matt Brown is plus 175. Miguel Beza, my boy, another one of my guys coming off Dana White Contender Series 2 fights ago, made his UFC debut last fight and knocked out Hector Aldana. Those leg kicks, that'll get you. He's currently undefeated, and 6 of his 8 professional wins have come by knockout. He has some really nice kicks and legitimate power on the feet, but he's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And even though he's never got a finish in his career professionally by submission, I think the line is absurd here. I'm seeing 12-1 for most books on BARBOZA by submission, and I think that has some good value here. And because Matt Brown, he's coming off the second round knockout victory against Ben Saunders back at UFC 245, but he's 39 years old. He's on a 2-fight win streak, but it came against Diego Sanchez and Ben Saunders. So basically 2 like older just cans that he beat up on. So it doesn't really, like, that's not really giving me any confidence to back him or think that he still has it. And BARBOZA has a really strong inside distance line at -110. That's one of the best on the slate. So I think there's just, like I said, so many paths to victory for BARBOZA here. He's the younger fighter. He's going to be quicker. He's more powerful. And he's the better submission grappler. Matt Brown's a brown belt. Miguel BARBOZA is a black belt. So BARBOZA's a strong play in all formats on DraftKings and a strong add to parlays as well. And I think actually, I said -210, but that was earlier. He was one of the ones the line did move. So I think he's -175 now. Yeah, -175. So for whatever reason, people are putting some dog money on Matt Brown, but I'll take the value because I think that definitely goes back to 2-1 by fight night on Saturday, and for good reason, because I'm pretty confident in Miguel BARBOZA. I think he gets the job done, and like I said, he's a strong add to parlays. On DraftKings, he's $9K, and I think that's what he was priced last time. I know he was he's $9,400, so a little bit more expensive last time. He came through for us. I could see a similar result this time. I think he gets a finish, and I think he's a good play, a good bet as well. So I'm all over Miguel BARBOZA this week. And Travi in the chat says, I like BARBOZA, but you can never sleep on Matt Brown. Yeah, I mean, that's true, and I think that's why we've seen some of the love come in on Matt Brown a little bit is he's been around. He's a veteran. A lot of people know who he is, and he's not a bad fighter. It's just I think BARBOZA has the advantage here at this stage in both of their careers. If this was Matt Brown a couple of years ago, then I might have a different story. But in these type of matchups, especially with a fighter with the skill set of Miguel BARBOZA, I'm always going to back the young up-and-coming prospect if I think he has legitimate talent, and BARBOZA fits that bill. So I'm on BARBOZA. And that wraps up the prelims. Moving on to the main card, we're going to have Song Yadong versus Marlon Chito Vera, my boy. Chito Vera, love Chito Vera. Yadong Song comes in as the -175, or the -170 favorite. The comeback on, let's see if that one, no, okay. The comeback on Marlon Vera is +150. And this fight as a whole is -150 not to go to decision. And a big reason for that is because Marlon Vera's just been finishing everybody. He's on a 5-fight win streak. All 5 of those have come with a finish. And Song Yadong is basically like, I love this matchup. I'm really excited for this matchup. These are 2 prospects that I like to watch fight. So as a fan, I'm just really excited. But Song Yadong is like a really good striker. He's super quick. They call him the Kung Fu Panda. And I believe he used to train, I might mess this up, but I think he used to, like, he grew up training with the Shaolin monks. And he's just like an absurd, like, he's literally a ninja in the octagon. Like, he's very, very fast. And I think he has a striking advantage here. You know, Marlon Vera, while he does enjoy to get into a striking battle, sometimes he's losing those exchanges. He does have some really nice elbows. He's done a lot of damage with them in his last few fights. But where Vera has his advantage is with his grappling. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The problem is he doesn't wrestle. He doesn't look to land takedowns. He lands less than 1 takedown per 15 minutes, which is a problem. You know, when your biggest advantage is grappling, but you don't take guys down, and while he's submitted guys, it's usually after they take him down, or he pulls guard or gets a trip. Like, he just doesn't take people down. And if he doesn't look to take Song Yadong down, I think he's vulnerable here. And I think that's why the line is such a big favorite on Yadong, because I think this would be a much closer fight, if not Vera a small favorite, if we can have any faith that he would go to his wrestling and grappling. But when you watch his fights, he loves to brawl, and it's fun for the fans. But in terms of fight IQ, I think he could have a lot more success if he goes to the wrestling and the grappling, but he just doesn't do that. So because he doesn't do that, I see him losing. While it should be an exciting battle, I see him losing the striking battle, and that's why I have to back Yadong Song here. Song by decision is the official pick. However, Vera's never been finished, and so if these guys just keep trading for 15 minutes, maybe he catches Song Yadong with an elbow, because we know Vera can take a punch, but Yadong, he's been knocked out before. He's coming off a draw with Cody Stamann, where Cody Stamann took him down. I thought Cody Stamann won that fight, but they ended up scoring it as a draw. And prior to that, he was on a 7-fight win streak. So he's no slouch. Both of these guys are coming in with, a promising future. Yadong's younger. He's only 22 years old. So he definitely has a bright future either way. I think he wins the striking battle here. But like I said, I think there could be some value in Marlon Vera if it continues to creep up. It's at plus 150 now. I wouldn't mind hitting that, even though I think Yadong Song is more likely to win a decision. Marlon Vera's my boy, and I'd be kind of mad if I didn't have some type of money on him and he won as an underdog here. So I did want to mention that. Next fight up on the card is going to be Eric Anders versus Krzysztof Jotko. Jotko comes in as minus 155 favorite. The comeback on Eric Anders is plus 135. This one is basically just a stay away for me. I could see this being a really boring fight, probably an ugly, low-scoring split decision or something like that. This fight to go to decision is minus 165. But basically, Anders is coming in on a 2-fight win streak. Both guys are on a 2-fight win streak. Anders most recently won a split over Gerald Meerschaert back in October. And Jotko won a split most recently over Barrio. So, I could just see this being another one of those cases, because neither guy really has a super strong advantage in any area. I would say Anders has the more power on the feet, but he doesn't throw hands. So it really doesn't help you if you're not willing to throw hands. Both guys land less than 3 significant strikes per minute. So it's going to be a low volume. Both of these guys like to wrestle a little bit. I could see a lot of holding up against the cage, not throwing a lot of punches. So outside of like an early knockout, which would surprise me, I just think both of these guys bust their price tag on DraftKings, and I'm just totally not interested. Even from a betting perspective, I don't see any value in this. So I do lean Jotko. So Jotko by decision is the official pick, but the only reason I'm leaning him is because I think he's more willing to wrestle, and he's the better grappler. I think he's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Eric Anders only a purple belt. So it's not a super confident lean, but overall it's just a stay away for me. I'm just not that interested in it altogether. All right, another exciting fight we have up next. Dan Ige versus Edson Barboza. Barboza's dropping down to featherweight here, and he comes in as a slight favorite, minus 130. The comeback on Dan Ige is plus 110. This fight, not to go decision, is plus 110. So we see a lot of fights on this card. I think we're going to see a decent amount of finishes. We've seen some heavy ones not to go to decision, and a lot of these are like Vegas doesn't want to make a hard stance one way or the other. So you see like plus 110, plus 130, minus 110. These ones could go either way in terms of a finish. And so Dan Ige, I'm a big Dan Ige guy. I think just over the course of his career, he's been a little bit underrated. He's come through as a small underdog for me a couple times. So maybe I'm a little bit biased, but I do like his skill set. And this is a really, really tough test for him against Barboza. Barboza was one of the scariest dudes at 155, and he's kind of hit a skid here lately. Lost 4 of his last 5, but those 4 losses came against like the best dudes in the division. He lost against Khabib, lost against Kevin Lee, lost against Justin Gaethje, got knocked out in the first round, and most recently lost a decision to Paul Felder in September. So now he's moving down to 145, which if he looks if his body can do it okay, then he's going to be pretty big and very powerful for this weight class. Just keep an eye on the scales on Friday to see how he looks. If you're kind of second guessing the move down in weight class like I am. But Dan Ige is definitely going to be one of the guys that are eager to welcome him to this division. He's coming in on a 5-fight win streak. Most recently, that decision win against Mirsad Bektic. And Ige's just tough as nails. And basically, sorry, I was reading the chat. Gas Pino 10 says have to pay attention to the weigh-in 100%. This is like one of the and I don't say that about many fights. This is one of the few fights where like the weigh-ins are legitimately important, because if Barboza looks like he's gonna die, that's pretty problematic, especially against a guy like Ige who's really tough. But it doesn't necessarily mean he's like an auto loss if he looks bad on the scales. But then again, it doesn't inspire confidence in me either. And either way, I'm backing Ige here because, like I said, not only is he coming in with a nice little fight win streak here, but he fights a pretty smart game plan. He usually comes out really strong in the first round and then tends to take the second round off a little bit, and then he saves some in the tank in the second round and then comes out hard again in the third. And that was really evident in his last fight against Bektic. But he's done that a few times now. And he seems to respond to like his coaches, like getting him amped up, which I like. I like that in a fighter, and especially in an underdog. So when it comes to who has the advantages, Barboza, like I said, he's going to be bigger. He's going to be sporting a 4-inch reach advantage. He'll probably have the speed advantage. In terms of power, I don't know. I think Ige actually might have the more powerful punches. Obviously, Barboza has the kicks. He has some of the deadliest kicks in UFC history. So I expect him to try to beat up the legs of Dan Ige early and often, especially if this fight does go 3 rounds. Those legs, hopefully Ige starts checking him early, and even if he does, like the kicks of Barboza, they just do so much damage. But I think that's going to be a reason why Ige, even more so than in previous fights, goes to his wrestling. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a solid wrestler, trains with Habib and those guys at AKA a lot. He's good friends with Justin Gaethje. They've had some training rounds together. So I do like Dan Ige. I just think he has more paths to victory in this matchup. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't say the move down to 145 does have me a little bit worried of Barboza. Combine that with how he's lost 4 of his last 5. He's getting a little bit older. And I just like Dan Ige. He's a scrapper, and I think he can scrap his way to a decision win here. So Ige is the official pick. I do have interest on Draftkings, obviously, because he's 7.7K, and in his wins, he generally scores pretty well. Usually because he's landing takedowns, advancing position on the mat. You see, Bektic, he didn't score well, but Kevin Aguilar scored 90 points in a decision. Jordan Griffin scored 99 points in a decision in that one. So he generally scores pretty well if he wins. And at under 8K, I do have interest if I think he's a live dog. So he's going to be a pretty decent play for me. And then Barboza, on the other hand, outside of an early knockout, I'm just not super interested. So I'm probably going to have like a couple Barboza shares just as a hedge for me of how heavy I'll be on Dan Ige. But Barboza at 8.5K, I just don't think he does enough if he wins a decision. And Ige's never been knocked out, so I don't think he's going to knock him out. So I like the plus money on Ige. I like him as a DraftKings play, so I'm backing Ige here. Next fight up on the card is going to be Angela Hill versus Claudia Gadelha. This is the co-main event of the evening. I love Angela Hill. She's one of my favorite fighters. She's got an awesome personality, and I just love her fighting style. I also love the fact that she is willing to fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. And the UFC loves that as well because they keep asking her to step in on short notice and take these fights. And she's been doing it, and she's been winning. She's coming in on a 3-fight win streak. She's finished 2 of those last 3. Her last one was a decision victory. But she's got a really tough matchup here. GADELHA comes in as the minus 210 favorite. Angela Hill, the plus 175 underdog. And GADELHA's coming off a decision victory against Randa Marcos last July. And I really have issues backing GADELHA, especially as a pretty big-sized favorite here, because she's so tough to trust. She's low volume on the feet. Obviously, her wrestling and her grappling, she's a black belt, a great grappler. That's her path to victory here, because Angela Hill, she's okay at defending takedowns. She's pretty decent, but she's not very good at defending submissions. And in fact, Randa Marcos, who Claudia GADELHA just beat, was able to sub Angela Hill in the first round when they fought. So there is definitely a very clear path to victory for Claudia GADELHA, so I understand why she is a favorite here. But again, like I said, I don't feel comfortable backing her as such a big favorite because of the cardio issues, and because I could see another scenario where this fight plays out with Angela Hill stuffing the takedowns in the first round, and as we get into the second and third rounds, as GADELHA tends to gas, Angela Hill just beats her up on the feet. So that's definitely a possible outcome as well. So the pick is Claudia GADELHA by decision, because I think the more likely outcome is she is able to take Angela Hill down and control her on the mat, maybe even submit her. But I don't love the price on DraftKings. Angela Hill, on the other hand, is so cheap on DraftKings. She's only 7.1K that I do have some interest, even though I'm picking GADELHA to win here. At 7.1K, I always talk about choosing underdogs that can likely break the slate if they win. And she's one of them. If she stays super active, she lands over 5 significant strikes per minute. She's just under 6. So she's an active fighter. If she stuffs the takedowns and this turns into a boxing match, she's going to land a lot of significant strikes. And even in a decision win, she's going to score really well at 7.1K. So even though, like I said, I think GADELHA is more likely to win, I am going to have some interest with Angela Hill on DraftKings. GADELHA at her price, 9.1K, likely needs a finish. So outside of an early submission, she's going to bust her price tag. And most of her last fights all came by decision. So mostly just a fade for me. Gaspin 10 said GADELHA was minus 160. Yeah, so like I said, I don't know if I saw her at minus 160, but I definitely saw line movement. So opened at minus 195. Basically, last Monday, moved to minus 160, and then immediately came back down the next day and has since been steamed a little bit to 200. But yeah, I mean, I can see why. She's definitely has a grappling advantage. But like I said, if Angela Hill can stuff those takedowns and GADELHA does gas out like she tends to do, then Hill is absolutely a live dog. All right, we made it to the main event. We have Alistair Overeem versus Walt Harris. Walt Harris comes in as a minus 145 favorite. The comeback on Overeem is plus 125. And I've actually been kind of shocked to see the money coming in on Overeem here. Originally, when the line opened up at minus 160, I'm like, oh, I'm betting Walt Harris. And then I'm looking at it, and I look at it, and I'm like, oh, minus 150? I'm definitely betting Walt Harris. And then it comes back up now to minus 145. I'm like, are you serious right now? I am going to bet a house on Walt Harris. Like, I really think Walt Harris has the advantage here. Obviously, both guys have a ton of power. Anyone can knock anyone out at the heavyweight division. And that's why, for DraftKings, I always talk about getting exposure to both sides of the matchup. And obviously, you want to do that here as well. Overeem, definitely cheap on DraftKings. I think he's 7.5K. And Walt Harris he's 7.5. Walt Harris, 8.7. And when you look at this fight, obviously you want the winner. You want the winner regardless. I'm going to have somebody from this fight on every single lineup I make because, it's minus 465 not to go to decision. Obviously, we're expecting a knockout here. And I just think it comes from Walt Harris. I think both of them have power, but Walt Harris has taken less damage over the course of his career. Overeem's lost his last 11 fights. He's lost them all by knockout. His last 11 losses, have all been by knockout. And most recently, obviously, the one where Jairzinho Rozenstruik literally took his lip off. So, obviously, he's taken a lot of damage. going up against a guy who's hungrier now more than ever, especially with the situation with losing his daughter. Very sad story if you're not familiar. ESPN is actually going to do a special on that tomorrow, Friday. So definitely check that out. But yeah, so it's not only does he, I think, have the advantages at this stage in his career, but he's also fighting for something a little bit more, which I think, obviously that's a narrative, but I think it does factor in here. So I'm gonna be really heavy on Walt Harris. I think he puts the pressure on him early, and I think he gets him out of there with a quick finish. And at 8.7K, he's one of the strongest plays on DraftKings, probably the strongest play on the board. So Harris by knockout is the official pick. And that Bobby in the chat asked how many fights go 5 rounds. So the main event is the only one that'll be 5 rounds. But like I said, I don't think it's lasting that long. I'd be surprised if it got out of the first round. So that wraps up the main card. I'll go over my favorite bets real quick. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to get them in the chat now. And we can talk about them after I list my favorite bets. All right, so some of my favorite bets, Nascimento by submission. Like I said, I thought we'd get a better price on that, but plus 177, still a decent amount of value because it is such a clear path to victory for him. I like Kevin Holland at minus 105. I like Miguel Beza at minus 175. I like Miguel Beza by submission at 12-1, just absurd value. Like I said, he hasn't had a submission victory yet, but it's coming. He's a black belt. And if Matt Brown's willing to grapple with him, it could come on Saturday. Brown's a good grappler as well, but if he gets tired, he's grappling with a black belt. And 12-1 is just way, way too much value for a black belt to win by submission. It just is. So I like that bet quite a bit. Marlon Vera plus 150 or higher. I think that could get a little bit higher. If it does, I'll pounce on that as well. And then Walt Harris by knockout minus 118. That's going to be a strong play for me as well. All right, Gaspin in the chat said, should we wait longer on the Walt Harris line? I'm not going to. Like I said, I haven't placed any bets yet. I'm going to later on tonight once I get a little bit of free time, get this video up on YouTube and whatnot. But I'm going to bet it tonight just because minus 145 is so juicy to me, and I'd be surprised if it got better than minus 145. So I'm going to hit it tonight. It's up to you if you think that people are going to keep backing over him, but like I said, I think it's probably going to pull back the other way. So I like Walt Harris at minus 145 and at by knockout at minus 118. All right. So that pretty much wraps things up, guys. We talked DraftKings, we talked betting. I'm gonna go ahead and upload this to YouTube tonight. Podcast will be posted. Article will be posted on my website, fightnumbers.com. And then you'll also be able to find on Fight Numbers, you'll be able to find DraftKings player rankings broken down by salary tier. That'll be updated tomorrow morning, along with ownership projections, and a line movement page will be updated Saturday morning as well. All of that is completely free. All I ask is that you follow me on all social media channels. As always, click the heart button on my Twitch channel. I'm at 49 followers. My goal was 50 the other day. We haven't got there yet, so you can be number 50. And then obviously hit the subscribe button on YouTube if you like what you see. Good luck Saturday. I think we will have a very successful card, a big bounce back card for us, like Korfhagen said. But yeah, good luck, guys. I'm super excited for Saturday. Hit me up on social media at John Kelly DFS if you have any questions prior to fight night. Other than that, good luck, and I will see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the Fight Numbers Podcast with John Kelly. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like and subscribe.